So, welcome to a conversation about employee engagement. And one of the things that we know is that labor is a very challenging topic. It has been. We've been talking about it what seems like for years, because I think actually it has been years. So, today is a conversation with a panel of experts within the space to talk about what their BSCs are doing around the topic of employee engagement and making sure employees feel as invested in the future of those organizations as those of you leading operations for your organizations are. We do have an opening polling questions that I think that Hannah will kick off here. We'll revisit those at the end. I'm joined on this panel by three friends, and I'm delighted that they're joining us. Jamie Henry is the CEO of Beeline, and I'll have them explain a little bit about their BSCs and what their organizations are like. We've also got Dave Clear. He's the COO of the professional group. So welcome, Dave. And we've got Charles Keenum. He's with Buck Group. He is the vice president there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set the stage just to present really what the data are showing us about the labor market, where we are. And that really sets the stage for how much of a priority this topic is for companies going forward, not just in the next year, but what we expect for the rest of this decade. And what are some strategies that have worked? We also want to hear some strategies that haven't worked. So with that, I'm going to kick it off and just go through a sort of an overview of where we are. So the unemployment rate just last Friday jumped up from 3.4% to 3.7%. So that's the biggest jump we've seen in a long time. 3.4% for perspective, we haven't seen an unemployment rate that low other than this January since the late 1960s. For context, full employment is considered 4.2%. That's when the economy, everybody that should be working is working. These states in green are states that last year had historically low unemployment rates. So the lowest unemployment rates that they had ever seen. And the important thing about an average like this is that there are as many states with a higher unemployment rate, and there are as many states with a lower unemployment rate to create the average. So we've seen in some of these states, for example, in Minnesota, we've seen unemployment rates around like 1.8, 2.0%. The data that came out last Friday was a bit confusing because the unemployment rate jumped up and the number of job hires jumped up significantly as well. So what we're seeing is that these numbers are changing. Some of those higher rates that we're seeing also are the result of churn. So employees that are quitting and then getting new jobs, or employees that are getting fired and then getting new jobs. So we're not still quite clear what the unemployment picture is. This is what's been keeping the Fed and Jerome Powell up at night, because they keep upping interest rates in order to try to drive up unemployment and push down consumer price indexes, which are being driven by wage increases. All of this is tied to the workforce. And I'll show you why I think that we will not hit a recession. Of course, I'm not an economist. Don't take your economic advice from me. I'm an HR person, but I do track this data pretty carefully. So these unemployment rates mean to you and everybody, not only in this industry, but across the labor market, everybody who wants a job has a job, literally. So if you want to hire an employee, they're working somewhere else for someone else, and you need to figure out a way to bring them to you. Of course, the greatest strategy not to have to hire is to keep the employees that you have. And that's what our topic is going to be about today. One of the questions I get often when I'm talking with business leaders is, where did everybody go? When are they coming back? Well, the reality is we lost 8 million workers since COVID. And a lot of it is the result of COVID. When we look at where those 8 million workers went, 500,000 workers died due to COVID. 2 million workers are out of the workplace right now as a result of long COVID and don't have the prognosis expected to be coming back to the workplace. We also lost 2.5 million baby boomers who retired earlier than expected, and we're seeing increasing trends of baby boomers leaving at higher proportions that we expect. because of their economic stability with the market having improved sufficiently for them to be able to retire early. And also the job market is such that it's hard work. And so we're seeing early retirees. We're also seeing 2 million women leaving the workplace in order to take care of their family responsibilities. And one statistic that I have been shocked about is that for a family with 3 children, a baby, a toddler, and a school-age child, the average daycare cost for that is $37,000 per year. So if you take into consideration some of your custodial staff, or even some of your administrative staff who may be making in the high 50s, low 60s before tax, that it's a no-brainer why we see women leaving the workforce. And then there's another 1 million that, according to the Fed chair, these are immigrants that would normally be legally entering the United States in order to populate our employment sectors. Legal immigration is down significantly. We hear a lot about illegal immigration. That isn't taken into consideration here. It's only those who are in the workforce and legal to work, and we're down 1 million from them. So that adds up to 8 million. When we look at another statistic, and that is the quit rate, we've been seeing quit rates that have been astronomical, historical. They've only been tracking this for about 22 years. But when we look at that quit rate, we found that just last month, we had 3.8 million workers quit their jobs last month. Last year in total, we had 50 million workers quit their jobs. And that's about 38% of the workforce. Now, most of them went to quit their jobs and go somewhere else, but this means that folks are leaving their jobs, creating vacancies that are hard to fill because of the tight labor market. When we look at that quit rate as of the most recent data, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's actually down significantly. So we're seeing some positive trends in the quit rate. So maybe folks are staying steady. I saw some recent economic data that wage increases are down significantly. So workers aren't able to demand the price and wage increases that they were able to do last year. So that's beginning to soften a little bit. They're not being able to demand as much as they want. But if we look historically, we still see that the quit rate over time since 2019 is still quite high. So we're not really out of the woods on that. So keeping those employees engaged continues to be a really important priority for workers or for employers. We also see the job opening rate. This is just from this morning. We still have 10.1 million job openings right now and only 6.1 million workers available to fill those jobs. So we're still operating at a 4 million worker deficit given what the economy and what productivity demands exist in the workforce. When we look at the labor force participation rate, this is the number of employees, or the percentage of employees aged 16 years or older who are available to work in the workforce. We're seeing that we hit kind of an all-time high in the 2000s, early 2000s, but that participation rate is still significantly lower than the demand that we need. One of the factors driving this participation rate is that we have earlier retirees. So they're still counted as a participant, a possible participant in the labor force, and are not working. So the aging population is an issue, but also gig working, and again, those moms that are out. This shows that we still have not a large enough proportion of people that are able to work actually working in the workforce. When we look out, we zoom out about what to expect. When we look at the trend in the birth rates, millennials, who are really defined at about 26 to their early 40s, they're fully in. If they're going to work, they are working. They are fully within the workforce. So we don't get any benefit of them entering the workforce to alleviate some of our labor challenges. Then we have Gen Z. They're currently about 25 years old to about 10 years old. So they do have the opportunity to come into the workplace. The issue with Gen Z is that that is not a large enough population to replace the baby boomers that are heading out. When we look at the birth rates that millennials are having, they are absolutely delaying having children. They're having fewer children. So we're not creating a population naturally within the United States to sustain a labor rate that we need or a labor participation force that we need. When we zoom out over the next century, the rest of this century, we can see the total population trends continuing to decline within the United States, barring either millennials starting to have lots of babies or major changes in our immigration policy and practices. Moreover, when we look at employment trends, this is what the BLS anticipates, the Bureau of Labor Statistics anticipates the amount of workers that are going to enter the workplace in the next decade. And it looks like we're only going to be adding about 8 million workers to the workforce within the next decade. We're already 8 million short. So what we're saying in this statistic is we got some problems on our hands. And if there's one thing I want to leave you with, is especially given the importance that labor plays in this industry. I mean, it's all about labor. Labor is a diminishing resource. We do not have enough workers to meet the demand that exists today, let alone tomorrow. Everybody's competing for those workers. And it's becoming very expensive to maintain the workforces that we have. So what's required really is to understand this is not business as usual. We have seen labor cycles in years past. We haven't seen them with the dramatic changes that we see right now. And the best evidence to point to that is the Fed has been talking about a recession and jacking up those interest rates, but it's not moving the needle because the tight labor market is not an issue of economic uncertainty. It's an issue of there aren't enough people to fill the jobs out there in our economy, in our population. So really what this requires for everybody in this industry and every other industry is just a complete mind shift around labor. And that includes things such as, do we bid on projects that are going to be somewhat hard to staff? Do we continue to sell the way that we've been selling when we don't have the people to keep our promises? These are some of the real considerations that I'm having with BSC clients. And, you know, it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. Just a couple more slides. What do employees want? So if we know that keeping the employees that we have is a priority, what do we know they want? And this transcends this industry. This is what most employees want, period. How it shows up, how you structure it within your workforce will differ, but we know they want meaningful work. There has to be a purpose. And whether that purpose is because of your culture being so rich that showing up matters to them, or what they're doing is so meaningful, however they define it, the job for you is to help them know that what they're doing matters, and that when they spend their time with you, it is for a purpose. They want freedom and flexibility. They can't clean your buildings from their homes in their pajamas. We all know that. But they may want more flexibility in their scheduling, in their work, in their shifts, in the benefits. They want more flexibility. They want adequate compensation. A lot of folks think everybody is leaving because they want more money. Money is a proxy for somebody being happy. People will stay with lower compensation if all of the other pieces fit. If they leave for money, it's because there's nothing keeping them there. When you give them more money, it has a shelf life of about 6 weeks, and then it gets spent. So we know if you're well below market, you need to right size that. But shooting for 80% of the mean in terms of compensation isn't what's necessary in this day and age. It's doing the other things that keeps employees there. Wellness and well-being is a priority that we've never seen prioritized as much as we have since COVID. People have been through a hard time. Their families have been through a hard time. Their children are going through a hard time. And we've just all had a colossal reset on what is the purpose of my time on earth, and how do I want to spend that time? This transcends occupation. This transcends economic level. It's a reset for all of us. And finally, if folks are going to work for you, they want to know that what they're doing has a path. They want to know what plans you have in store for them. They want to see a roadmap, especially for Gen Z. They want to know where they're going and what your ideas are for them. And for your older populations, they may be very happy doing what they're doing. They may not want to be managing others. They may not want to grow into supervisors. They may be happy staying put, and they want to know that just doing what they do well is a sufficient career path for them within your organization that's being celebrated. I love the Gallup organization. They've been tracking what keeps highly engaged employees engaged. And they've been tracking this for 40 years. And these are the top 12 things. This is the Q12 beta analysis that Gallup does. And these are the things that highly engaged employees say keep them there. Again, not only within this industry, this is across all industries. Number one is I know what's expected of me at work, the most important thing you can do to create employee engagement. Number two, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. At work, I've had the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Number four, in the last 7 days, I've received recognition and praise for doing good work. Number five, my supervisor or somebody at work seems to care about me as a person. Number six, there's someone at work who encourages my development. Number seven, at work, my opinions seem to count. Number eight, the mission or purpose of my organization makes me feel that my job is important. Number nine, my associates or fellow employees are committed to doing good quality work. Number 10, I have a best friend at work. Number 11, in the last 6 months, at work, somebody has talked to me about my progress. And number 12, this last year, I've had opportunities to learn and grow. So these are things that we know in organizations. And the one thing I'll say about these before I move on, pay is not on here. And it doesn't cost anything other than intention and time to do these things in order to create an engaged workforce. Finally, the one thing we know is that people don't quit their jobs, they quit their frontline supervisors and managers. And given what we've been through, one of the things that Affinity HR Group has been recommending to our clients is we really, if you only have $1 to spend, we encourage you to spend it on developing your supervisors and your managers on not just how to do the job, but on how to interact with empathy and care and consideration with other human beings. We usually do not train our supervisors and managers around how to actively listen, how to have empathy, how to give positive feedback, how to navigate conflict with care and consideration. So these are hardcore soft skills that most of our supervisors lack and that they need in order to keep their employees that they're supervising engaged. So with that, I'm going to ask Hannah, do we have any polling results as a result of our poll earlier?
So Claudia, I actually haven't opened the polls yet, and I do want to call out, we had some late attendees join. So welcome everyone. And just a reminder that if you missed first few minutes of the session, this is being recorded, so we'll be able to view it in the Training Academy and in the portal page. But Claudia, if you're okay, I'll go ahead and launch the polls and I can live share the results.
Great.
So our first poll is, how challenging has it been to hire talent recently? So I'll give everyone a minute or two to get their responses in. Okay, looks like we have about 50% answered. I'll wait for a couple more people. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results.
Interesting. And what we've seen recently is that folks have been reporting that it's been a little bit easier. It's not as challenging as it was maybe a year ago. It's getting, it's still hard. It's always hard in this industry, but not quite as hard. I don't know whether Jamie, Dave, or Charles have any thought about this result.
It's definitely getting easier, and that's a result of us increasing our wages. Everything
Yes.
else you said is certainly true, but in order to get folks back on board in late 22 and 23, it's been tremendous wage increases. So my answer was somewhat challenging, not as challenging as it was before, still a challenge, and just seems to be getting better and better if we can pay those higher wages.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with Jamie on that. We saw the same thing when we raised our wages. We had an influx of folks, but that went away after about 2 months as our
Yes.
competitors raised their wages and McDonald's and Burger King went up also. We dropped right back into the very challenging portion. And now we're in the summertime. I was just speaking with one of my project managers yesterday, and he said, it's summertime, Dave. The folks we want to hire for these cleaning jobs want to be out enjoying their summers. They're not looking to work for the summertime. They'll come back when it's in the fall.
Speaking to freedom and flexibility, right? I mean,
Exactly.
they want that opportunity.
Claudia,
Yeah.
I would just add in there that we've seen our retention be a little bit better over the last several months. And so we've had to hire, I think, or recruit less. And I think that employees are a little bit scared of the economy and the possible recessions that are coming. And so they are not quitting as fast as they were back in 2022.
Yes. Yes, we've been hearing that as well. Hannah, let's launch the second poll, and then I will introduce the panelists again.
All right, looks like we have about 3/4 of everyone responding. So I'll give another couple seconds.
Interesting. That kind of surprises me because I would have thought that somewhat of a priority would have been lower. So that's interesting to me. Before we have the panel answer or comment on this, let me kick us off. Let me reintroduce the folks that we have on here for those who are new. I'm joined on this panel with three wonderful people. Jamie Henry is the CEO of Beeline out of Chicago. Dave Clear is the COO of the Professional Group. And then we've got Charles Kinham, VP of the Bud Group. So what I want to do is start off with having each of you, if you could go introduce yourselves, tell us about the size, how many employees, where you're located, and just give us a sort of a picture of what the labor market and what challenges around employee engagement or experiences you're having. So Jamie, I'm going to start with you, then go to Dave, and then to Charles.
Okay, sure. As Claudia said, I'm Jamie Henry, CEO and owner of Beeline. Our headquarters are in Chicago, and we service Illinois, Indiana, and a portion of Wisconsin. I have about 525 to 550 employees, depending on the payroll week. And our largest market segment is medical. So we clean lots of offsite medical office buildings, service the major healthcare networks, surgical sites. We also do our fair share of bank portfolios, schools, corporate, and your typical industrial. We have found employee engagement to be better. We've really put in place some great programs over the past couple of years, particularly as a result of what we saw post-COVID and this labor market crisis. We put together some great employee recognition, years of service programs. We just launched Beeline University, which I would love to talk about more as we go on with this session. One of the things I'm most proud of and super excited to launch. So from a standpoint of an inspired workplace, it's high priority for the organization. It's high priority for me. Our challenge is getting our operations team to make it high priority and high priority for our managers. And those are the folks that people essentially, as Claudia said, could quit and lead to our turnover.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I can't wait to hear about the programs. Dave, why don't you give us your introduction?
Sure enough. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Clear. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of The Professional Group. We actually run 3 divisions in our company. We have about 1,100 person janitorial cleaning organization. That's mainly in the Detroit area is where our work is. We have 3 general silos in our cleaning organization. We do large venues organizations. We clean all the Metro Detroit venues. We also do a lot of Class A office buildings in the downtown Detroit area and in the suburbs. And then we also do a lot of medical work. No hospitals, but medical office buildings, surgical suites, similar to what Jamie was talking about. So we have those big silos in our cleaning organization. Then we also have a landscape and snow removal division with about 100 people. And we also have an in-house supply company that does janitorial supplies. So we were, I think, significantly ahead of the game when back in 2013, our CEO at the time rolled out a new company culture. It was really something that was sort of unheard of back in those days. And we actually have a book here that is a 43-page book that talks about who we are and what we do. And we've really done a good job with this of trying to involve all of our managers and all of our supervisors. We just had a training session 3 weeks ago with 100 frontline supervisors and managers where we spent the entire day talking about our corporate culture and how we need people to be treated in the organization in order to keep everybody happy. We're a long way from being perfect, believe me. When I looked at our turnover percentage today, we're already at over a 50% turnover year to date. But a lot of that may have to do with our venues also, where we're hiring people to clean up after a Detroit Lions game. And then they realize after doing that once, they really don't want to do that ever again in their life. Well, that's pretty much who we are.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave. Charles, give us your introduction.
Thank you, Claudia. So Charles Keenan with the Bud Group. We have probably seasonal, probably 4,500 employees, primarily in the southeast part of the United States, janitorial, landscape, and facility services. And I think we really try to have a heavy focus on that employee culture and employee engagement. And just one takeaway that I'll give you that I think has really worked for us is we have a campaign to retain initiative. And so in that campaign to retain, if there's a new employee that starts with us, they get a phone call on the first day of their job. And there's a series of questions that they can answer yes or no, or they can just speak freely about how was that first day with them. So they get that 4 weeks in a row. They get a call and a recording of how things are. Do they have the right equipment? Do they know where to park? Do they feel like they're in a safe environment? Have they met their supervisor? So we're really trying to bridge that relationship and create that stickiness with them so that they'll stay on board with us. The other thing is we talk a lot about the purpose. Our jobs, or we feel our jobs are to create a safe and healthy environment for the tenants of the building, the students that are in that facility, but also to protect the assets of the company that we're working for. So we try to give them meaning, like you were talking about earlier, Claudia. They need meaning of what they are doing and kind of why they are doing that. And ultimately, their purpose of working is our promise to our customers. Mm-hmm. So we've made a promise to our customers, and that is the purpose that we try to install in them.
That's great. And that just for everybody, everybody in attendance here has made a promise to a customer. And so that's a motivator that everybody can tap into. Before I get off of you, Charles, one of the things I want to do, if possible, is to provide as much actual takeaway as possible. This survey instrument that you're using that calls your employees on their first day, do you mind sharing what technology you're using on that?
Sure, it's Java Talks.
Java Talks.
Java Talks, yes.
Actually, perhaps could you put it in the chat?
I sure can.
Awesome. While you're doing that, Jamie, I want to go back to you. You sound very excited about some programs, and I know that your operations and your training for your folks is really amazing. Tell us what you think has moved the needle and that you're really excited about that's worked for you.
Well, I was actually really surprised when I received the numbers from our HR department this morning on what our turnover rate is this year. It's gone down quite a bit. Year to date, we're 25%.
Wow.
We project to be up to 55% by the end of the year, but these are much lower numbers than last year. So very happy to see that things such as wage increases and employee engagement, where we're attempting to do so, has resulted in some really good numbers here.
That's great. So what programs have you put in place specifically to employee engagement?
So we've got a few. We launched our LMS system, Brainier, sometime last year. So we have the LMS system for our training. We did bring on daily pay, which some of you folks may have heard of. And the statistic I have on that is that 53% of new hires have actually signed on to daily pay. So that's pretty interesting that people are really using that program.
Did they sign on or have they been using it?
But those folks have been using it. So whether they use it frequently or maybe they've been a one-time user, the number is 53%. So pretty impressive. And that was a somewhat easy rollout to do.
Let me pause for one thing, Jamie. I just want for everybody, if you're in operations, maybe you're unfamiliar with this. Day pay is a program where you can actually provide your employees with up to 80%, 70 to 80% of the pay that they earned that day upon the end of the day. So if I work 8 hours and clock out, I'll have access to up to 80% of the pay that I earned in that specific day. And I don't believe it requires much pre-funding from the company. It really is. It's just a sort of an app that carries you over from pay period to pay period, but it gives the employees the opportunity to access that pay. Sorry, Jamie, keep going.
No, that's correct. I mean, there's really no cost to the company. There's a little bit of pain with the implementation, not too bad. There may have been a small fee to combine that with our enterprise platform. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward. So we have the LMS system, the daily pay. Our ADP system has quite a few things that allow the employees to see things via their portal, even with our own website. And then we just put together, so our mission as a company, and it always has been, is to provide careers for folks. So whether they start as a frontline employee, team worker, our mission is to provide them opportunity for advancement. So we're always repeating to our managers, please look out for those superstars in the field. You catch somebody doing something right, or they really seem to be a motivated, engaged employee. Those are the people that we want to promote from within. And as we've grown over the years, we've been able to do that. So a team member may start out as a janitor, move up to a day porter, move up to support. And if you look at our operations management team, at the very high end, everyone is 15 years plus. So that just speaks to they really know the business. They've been brought up through Beeline, and now they're leading the company. And I'm really proud to have these top line folks with 15, 16, 17 years of experience. And so now to do more of that, the ask is of all of our managers to consistently identify employees that are doing a good job. And those people that they've identified, we put together an entire program where they can just scan a QR code and nominate them into this Beeline University program that we created. And then those folks that have been nominated, they have the option that they can either opt in or choose not to go into the program. And then when they're in, it's a series of courses that actually speak to things that you mentioned, Claudia, about professional skills, email etiquette. And the first one is just a 4-hour course that they can go through. And if they pass that, celebration certificate. But then those are the people we really want to put at the front of the line for any promotion opportunities that come up.
Excellent. Did you develop the LMS yourself, or was this something you partnered with or outsourced?
Yes to both. So the LMS system we're using is called Brainier, one of many that's out there, but all the training that we have in the LMS system, most of it is customized and developed by our training and development in-house coordinator here. Because we do so much specialty work in operating rooms and surgical sites, we developed a lot of that in-house. And so that
if you can can you put the name of the LMS system that you just mentioned in the chat?
Yes, of course.
Sorry to make you work.
Oh, that's okay.
Dave, tell us a little bit about your programs. That book looks amazing, and you've been ahead of the game. Tell us what you've got in place that's working besides the foundation of the value and culture that you've prioritized.
We've actually taken advantage of a program that we ran into at one of the most recent BSCAI conferences. And we've recently implemented TrueVelop.
Yes.
Which is a really neat system to be able to let our people know that they're being thanked for doing their work. It's a evaluation and HR system that lets us give people a pat on the back electronically, and other folks can see it. It can go out to the whole organization. Everybody gets to see who's getting patted on the back, what they're getting patted on the back for. And one of the other things that we've started doing since COVID hit is we've been doing a weekly huddle with all of our frontline leaders. So every Wednesday, in fact, we did one this morning at 10 o'clock, like we do every Wednesday, with about 100 frontline leaders on a huddle where we bounce around the room for about 20 minutes, get updates from various department heads and various folks in the team to share information, across the company. But I really think that one of the biggest things we've done recently is the TrueVelop program, which gives us the chance to give people an electronic pat on the back.
So just for everybody here, TrueVelop is actually an affinity partner of BSCAI's. Greg Buckner, who's on here, has worked closely with them. It is a phone-based app that gives frontline supervisors the opportunity to evaluate key performers, but also to give that, that shout out, attaboy, attagirl, in real time, but it also ties into a performance management system. It really is an awesome program, and Lisa First Willis heads that up. And so if you don't know anything about it, you'll be able to, I would encourage you to check them out. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
So Charles, I know that you guys have put in place some real-time online feedback and evaluations. Tell us about that, and also what are some specific things around engagement, that programs that you feel either have been working or if they haven't been working. I think that also gives us a good we learn as much from our mistakes as we do from our successes.
Sure. So I think I heard two things in there to kind of comment on. So we also have an employee social kind of based app. It's called Bud Hive, and it's a way for us to recognize our employees. It's a way for employees to recognize other employees. If you think of like if you're familiar with Slack or Facebook or something like that, they can get on there and they can take pictures of a floor that's been stripped and waxed, kind of a before and after, and they can post that, and everybody in the company can see that. And the executives can comment on that and give accolades for great work. People can wish each other birthdays, just a number of ways to create that kind of positive energy and positive engagement for folks that we can't, see locally and stuff like that. So that's been really good. We've probably got about a 40% participation rate in that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we struggled at the beginning, but it's really taken off, and we've got some good what we call champions in each of our markets that kind of helps own that and get that information out. So that's been really good. The other thing that we do often is called stay interviews. And so we ask our managers to go out and do stay interviews. Now, the key to this is it's got to be proactive. It can't be when they turn in their notice. It needs to be proactive. It needs to go. And so there's, probably 35 questions that they can kind of choose from in this template that they have. And so that works really well if they do it and if they follow up. If there's turnover in that position or management position and there's not follow up with that hourly associate, then there can be failure there. That employee can feel like that they've been forgotten. And so you've got to really be careful around all that. And if there is some kind of a change or if an employee gets transferred to another account in the same city, you've got to really coordinate that information with that employee to the other supervisor and manager. So it's really good. Sometimes it can be, it's a lot to maneuver. And so you got to make sure that you don't drop the ball with that employee.
So when do you launch your stay interview? Is it people that you think are at risk, or do you do a percentage of your workforce regularly over time? Like, how do you decide who you interview?
Yeah, we try to do it with everybody once they've been with us for 4 months. The first 4 months, we want to get out there in front of them and we want to ask them, why have you stayed with us? What do you enjoy? What would you like to see different? Are there different, how's your equipment working? There's just a number of things that people can choose from. And then that manager, would have 30 days to kind of get back in front of that person with any kind of needed follow-up with that person.
One of the things that we know about employee engagement surveys, however you do them, whether that's form or others, is the critical thing when we sign up to do that type of work is we have to be absolutely sure that the employer is going to communicate back what they heard. Because if you ask anybody their opinion and you don't tell them what you've done with it, what you learned from it, what you heard from it, what you're going to do differently, then the actual act of asking can create more disengagement. As you said, if they provided this feedback and nobody responded, you can actually do much more harm than good by using some of those surveys. So just proceed with caution for those of you who are considering it. One other question for you, Charles. Bud Hive, what system did you use to build that on?
I think it's called Beehive. Beehive is kind of the parent company, I believe. I can look that up and see if I can find it.
Well, Jamie, I think you need to use this.
I think I need to use that one. Okay, yes.
Beeline. Let me ask you also, we've been talking about technology. You've all been mentioning it. So I've been trying to capture all of the tools that you're using as you go along. But what about things like any benefits, perks, incentives, change in scheduling to create more flexibility? What have you all done around the sort of benefit side of, other than pay, around the benefit side of the house for employees? And I'll let anyone who wants to answer first, or I'll pick on you. I'll start with Charles, since you're unmuted. And Jamie's looking at me in the eye, so I'm not going to ask her.
Could you repeat that? I was trying to look up Beehive website so that I could do that. Could you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no, I was just asking if anybody had any things that they had added to their menu of benefits, whether they're perks or whether they're incentives or whether they're, a new PTO or some sort of scheduling flexibility or, adding to those things that we know folks, wellness and well-being. If you've added any particular programs or perks or benefits that you think are important given the topic?
Yeah, probably in the last 2 to 3 months, and I'm not an expert and I can't give you a lot of details, but we've added a perk called We Care. And so it's an idea that we would help employees find childcare and benefits around that childcare while they come to work. But
how'd you do that?
Yeah, no kidding.
What's that, Dave?
I will have to get some more information on that. That our HR team did that, and I know they rolled it out, but
So this
I
was
can find
something
some
that
information.
entirely within your organization, you looked at where your employee populations were and you worked to create a pathway to childcare for your workers. Is that what that sounds like?
Yeah, we help them find places for childcare, because sometimes it's very difficult to find childcare in the evening or on third shift.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to find resources for that.
Within the communities. That's
right.
wonderful. Dave, Jemmy, anything that you've got going on?
Yeah, over here, we have started to, well, more than started, about a year ago, we really took a hard look at how we were recruiting for positions and doing our hiring for those positions. So rather than say we run an ad that says we're looking for a cleaner from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, we'll say we're looking for a part-time evening cleaner now. And if somebody comes in and says, I can't get there at 6, but I can get there at 7 or 7:30, and I can work until 11 or 11:30, or even if it's 10 o'clock. I mean, we've looked at our the way that we would like to staff these buildings and sort of changed it around and said, okay, instead of how we'd like to staff it, how can we staff it? And if we have 6 people available to work 3-hour shifts, why don't we do that and get our 18 hours instead of 4 people to work 4.5-hour shifts?
Yeah.
So
I'll say this at the risk of offending literally everybody on this webinar, seeing that it's an operations summit. That many of the challenges that we've seen around companies doing exactly what you suggest, Dave, creating some sort of flexibility or difference in how you're creating this scheduling, is because it's a pain in the neck. And a lot of operations folks who are doing the scheduling and they're doing the planning, they don't want to have to do that because this issue of employee engagement isn't their top priority. Because if they've got the bodies, they want to put the bodies in the right place. So that also is somewhat of a cultural shift. You know, Jamie, you were talking about developing your operations folks to look at things differently, because again, this mind shift, we have to look at them differently.
Yeah, and what we were able to explain to our frontline supervisors is, yes, it's a pain in the butt to schedule something that way or work around somebody that can only work 4 days a week instead of 5. But it's even more of a pain in the butt to clean those buildings yourself.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And Neil Chopper says that they put in place flexible attire, summer attire for the summer. So that sounds like a great program. Jamie, anything you want to add to this topic?
Well, in terms of schedules and flexibility, we're always aiming to hire full-time where we can. So we can combine jobs and give somebody a full-time shift. That's our desire. So we have a lot of route work because the full-time people, we want to be their primary source of employment. So we strive for that. But flexibility, unless it's a day porter job and they need to be there from 8 to 5 or whatever their shift is, we've always tried to really allow that flexibility as soon as the building is closed and they can go in there and start their shift. We do allow that. There's some banks and other buildings that may have some regulations that people have to be out by 2 or 3 a.m. But we've kept that open in terms of there's not a fence around you need to work from 6 to 7:15. You do need to work your budget time and not over your budget time, but there is that flexibility of when you can go to work and when you can complete the work.
Got it. Actually, Whitney Foster says that they do the same thing. She says that we tell our new hires that they can start the building later as long as they start their start time is consistent. So allowing that flexibility. And Neil Chopper says that that summer attire that they rolled out for the summer is just for the owner. So that was not helpful. Just joking. Awesome. So what about this issue of getting employees to care as much as you do? to be as committed as you are. Do you have any positive, fun ways that you've either created competition or that you've celebrated wins or that you've created that sort of let's go team environment, within your work groups as a whole? I'll put that out to anybody who wants to answer.
We do, I know that there's other programs out there where there's an app, but we do a lot of employee spotlights and a lot of social media, and we have our folks nominate other folks and try and highlight that as much as possible.
For any who are not connected with Jamie on LinkedIn, I encourage you to connect with her on LinkedIn or just follow Beeline to see they do an amazing job of keeping that employee focus and success and wins really front and center. You guys do an amazing job at that.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to talk about that? How do you get folks working together as a team and doing that kind of competition or success or wins? Charles or Dave?
Yeah, I mean, we don't, I don't know if we have like a formal plan, but we do, many of our managers create competition between teams. If it's a large location, they create competition. If there's 4 teams there, they do, their quality checks or customer surveys and stuff like that. And of course, the team that has the best scores or maybe the least amount of absenteeism during a month, then they're, rewarded with pizza parties or food or donuts or recognition on our Bud Hive. So there's a lot of things like that, or they're pictured maybe when we do our QBR meetings with our customer. We show their pictures to our team. So there's a lot of, we try to leave that spirit of competition up to those managers that are out there in the field to put something together. But we do encourage it for sure. And it does work.
Yeah. Edwin says that our company gives bonuses to all employees when they reach their 90 days working with good attendance and good performance. So this gets me, I want to ask I want to take that on a different direction, which is, I know we've all been fiddling it with retention bonuses and with referral bonuses and with, pay money at different stages along the retention schedule to try to keep folks here. I think some of them have worked, and I think some of them have really failed. And so with that, I want to ask, what's not working? Like, what has failed that we can just put out there for those of us who might be having the same failures?
I will say we have a very extensive referral bonus program. But what happens, and it's not necessarily a bad thing or a failure, is the same people send in their referrals. So we have a group of existing Beeline employees that are just, maybe they're massive networkers, or they like the referral funds that they get. So we're getting the referrals from that same group of people, and they're successful at doing that. But if we could multiply that and have 20 people and not 6 people that are always sending in referrals, or have all 550 send in referrals. So we've got like this core group that must be master networkers, send the people, and those still by far are our best employees. Those are the ones that stay. It's just works out so much better for us when they're referred in, our best source by far. So
yeah. I know one topic when talking about employee referrals is that a lot of employees really don't like to refer employees in because they're worried that if those employees that they refer in are not successful, that it will reflect badly on them. So we talk a lot with owners and frontline supervisors to reassure folks that if they do an employee referral, that that they're not responsible for the performance of the people that they bring in. And I think that has to be very clearly and regularly articulated, because the folks that you've got who are doing it and are doing it well know that they're good. It doesn't matter. They're satisfying that piece. But that may be a piece of what's keeping others from being as successful, that fear of any negative reflection if the employee doesn't work out that they've hired.
Yeah, we still offer the referral bonus, but we did actually find at a couple locations that several of our existing employees were getting insulted by us not hiring the people they were referring.
Oh, that's interesting.
because quite honestly, they weren't quite up to the level of folks we needed.
Yeah.
But, our existing employees were getting upset with us that, well, I referred my boyfriend, why didn't you hire him?
Yes. Well, and that's another good thing to articulate before anybody's submitted anybody. Please know, regardless of who you put forward, we may or may not, for reasons that may be available for us to share, we may or may not move on somebody you refer. So if they know that beforehand, then they won't be offended when you don't hire their boyfriend.
Right.
Charles?
I echo what Jamie says. We've got a lot of people that will send the referrals in over and over and over again. They feel like they're working the system. They're doing something right to pad that paycheck and stuff. But I mean, I'd say that's one of the things that we need to figure out a little bit.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we only have 2 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is, if anybody has any questions for the panel, please feel free to put them in. I'm going to ask you guys in short little snippets, sound bites, what's keeping you up at night? What's keeping you up at night? When you look in the next 12 to 18 months, what's keeping you up at night?
So I can tell you what's keeping me up at night is the clients and the competitiveness in the marketplace. So we've had a couple of large clients that have just backed down on their service days or their porter hours, which were big hits to us. So I think that sort of the cautious take they're moving forward with in today's inflationary environment, if anything, that's scary, because I think now they're out sort of shopping for the low price leaders, which we are not, and we don't want to be. So it's scary, because I've seen it happen already. Not that they don't love us, but they have to make these budget decreases, and something that was 5 days a week is now suddenly 3 days a week, and we have to acquiesce sometimes. So.
Dave?
Yeah, from our side, or my side personally, it's staffing. It's taking on the growth that we're experiencing. We were just awarded a $1.2 million job yesterday that we need to start in less than 45 days, and we need to have 40 people. And I'm very concerned about being able to do that and growing the janitorial side of our business as well as the grounds care side of our business, because things are exactly the same in that division with the limited staffing availability, and the folks just aren't out there. So what we have done is really started to look for more autonomous equipment that we can use.
Yeah.
We've really jumped on that and said that can be a big saver for us, even if it's a 25-person site that we may clean. If I can reduce the load by putting 3 autonomous machines that report on time every day and start when you push the button, it'll at least take me down to 23 people or 22 people at that site. So it buys us a little bit of time. The same thing on our grounds care side. Anything we can do to use the technology.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, Charles, I can't hear what keeps you up at night, but I hope you're sleeping like a baby. And I think that last point, Dave, is really, we need to start looking at things differently, because if we're selling the way that we want to sell, to grow the way that we want to grow, we will always run into this problem with how we're staffing. And the best way to keep them is to keep them. So with that, I want to thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Charles, for participating in this. Thank you, Hannah and BSCAI, and thank you all for joining our panel today.